This is Inside the Wrestlers' Lives.
All right, welcome to Inside the Wrestlers' Lives. I'm Andre C. I'm sitting here with Chris Parrish, sitting down talking about wrestling, his career, what he loves about wrestling still to this day, what he's not a big fan of to this day. So let's get into it. We were just chatting just a minute ago. You were talking about your friend who's not much into wrestling anymore. You explain on that. Like you said, you had a buddy who was hardcore with you, but not so much anymore.
Well, I was just saying that how much that the WWE Network kind of just changes the perceptions of what people thought about wrestling to what it is now. That's why I want to get it when we get it next month, because it's going to be something that I think just brings out the old fan in you. And I'm just excited to go back and watch like the mid '90s when I watched Shawn Michaels for the first time against like Triple H, where he would drop him on his nose in like just a regular match, and they just made that comedy spot. That's kind of the stuff I fell in love with wrestling about, and it's gonna be fun to go back and watch it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting it because it's 2000. It was 2000 when I started, so I'm looking forward to going back, seeing that era, and going back and watching the stuff I'm not super familiar with in the Attitude Era, and before too. So
yeah, it's gonna be fun just to go back and watch a lot of old characters that like you just kind of forget about nowadays. Like I don't know, I was never a big fan of the Mad Mountain Rock or Mantar or like those kind of characters, but it'll be fun to see them again. It'll be cool to watch like Phineas and Henry Godwin like slop Sonny, because that was always good stuff.
Yeah. Well, just on that, what do you think Bushwhackers going in the Hall of Fame? What do you think about those two? Just as that tag team, do you think?
Yeah, I love it. I actually had a chance to work with Bushwhacker Luke, I believe.
Yeah.
A couple years ago with X-Fest and the Sonic Boom out in Calgary and here in Edmonton. And yeah, like they're just good guys, like good professionals. Like I think another guy too going in there should be Gangrel. No, just that.
I've heard good things about Gangrel from going to shows and talking to wrestlers that have worked with them.
Yeah, but just getting back to the Bushwhackers, I mean, no, like they're a great tag team, and then I always remember just the way they walk, the way they cut like their promos with vignettes back in the day. They were just great entertainment. But I read something where Hulk Hogan said he'd like to see Ravishing Rick Rude in the Hall of Fame. And that's another guy I hope they can induct pretty quick.
For me, it'd be the British Bulldog and Dynamite Kid. Induct them as a tag team, because I think their biggest success in the industry was as the British Bulldogs.
Oh, for sure. Their stuff with the Hart Foundation just back then was just absolutely fantastic. Another big one that I think they just need in there is Owen Hart. He's
sure.
one of my favorites all time, and yeah, no, I'm happy that Macho Man's getting in. So I mean, I'll take my small battle.
Yeah, it's happy to see. It's nice to see him actually getting in finally. It's sad that it's after he's dead. It would have been nicer if they could have done it when they could have come together when he was alive, instead of having to deal with his family afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to see them make those decisions, and I think that's what made the Ultimate Warrior one so special, because it was the last thing he basically did.
That was a tragic one of it all, but the fact that it got to happen literally right before he died, I think it made it even more special.
Yeah, and I think with a lot of those, like just with the Ultimate Warrior getting that opportunity, I thought, from what I've read, it brought him a lot of closure in life, and it was very of a touching way for him to go out as top and always being remembered in a positive light, because there's been a lot of negative things about him in the past. Especially with WWE making that DVD that basically makes fun of him. But no, it's just nice to see that a character like that, because I mean, my brother was just a huge Ultimate Warrior fan, and he would always be somebody that I would go and watch wrestling with just because he liked Warrior and I liked Macho Man. So it was one of those things that was just nice to see, because that guy definitely deserves it. But at the same time, that's one of the characters you'll never forget about the 80s.
I think with Ultimate Warrior having gone in now, I think it all started, with Brett. Like Vince being able to finally get those fences mended, and I think he realizes Triple H should go start that thing, and then they can mend the fences with the guys with the problem, like Bruno and Warrior, Brett. Although they have a chance now, because Vince is seeing, okay, I might as well mend those fences with those guys.
Well, yeah, that was the cool thing about that podcast with Triple H and Steve Austin was Triple H saying how much he wanted to get Bruno in there, and how Vince McMahon never thought like that they would ever have a working relationship again. And he basically told Triple H, he's like, well, if you want him in, go try it. And then he talked him in. And
I think you guys did the same thing with Warrior too, which works great. Hopefully you'll get to see more and more guys that had a problem with Vince in the past. Triple H can mend that fence. Yeah, it's a great thing.
It's always nice to see the guys who have deserved and like worked their entire life and made kind of what wrestling is today and paved the way for a lot of the guys today, and just get recognized for all the things they do. Because I do believe that maybe without this network, where you can't necessarily go back and watch everything they did, they kind of lose that nostalgic feeling in a little bit. But now that you can watch the network, you get to remember just how good these guys were.
I hope they start uploading a lot of like Bruno stuff. I think you're going to see, come WrestleMania, a really hard push for Macho Man's. A lot of his stuff's going to be really hard pushed at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
For his induction, they're going to push his stuff really hard on that network.
Well, especially the match against Silva.
Oh, that's probably going to be their biggest highlight on that whole thing.
That's definitely up there in my personal top WrestleMania matches. That's for sure.
For sure. All right, let's get into you. Start talking about you. You're the inspiration for this book. I brought you here to talk about your life, and your career in wrestling. All right, first off, where were you born and where'd you grow up?
I was born in Edmonton, Alberta, at the Royal Alexandria Hospital back in 1986. Seems like a long time ago, but I lived and grew up in St. Albert, Alberta. So I mean, not too far. St. Albert never had a hospital, so that's why I wasn't conceived there. But, but at the same time, that's where I grew up. That's where I went to school, and that's where I live now.
All right, so. We were talking about, where was the first time you saw a wrestling match, and what got you wanting to do it?
My first time watching wrestling, I think it was just, I just channel surfing, or my brother was watching it. I honestly don't remember the very first time I watched wrestling. I remember the first pay-per-view I've seen. I remember some of the early moments, but I don't remember the exact first time, but I do remember thinking it was cool. Just because there was so many larger-than-life characters, and that's kind of what inspired me, because I never got into comic books so much as a kid.
Yeah.
But wrestling was always cool because it was always action-packed and live, and it was always one of those things where.
And you could go to see live stuff locally. There's always local stuff, especially back then with Stampede.
Well, yeah, Batman and Spider-Man never came to St. Albert or Edmonton, but
you can only see him
did.
You can only see him in a theater, but WWF, Stampede, they're all there physically. You can watch these guys and meet these guys and touch these guys.
Yeah, it was cool when Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant came into town, because you knew you weren't going to see Bruce Wayne or Peter Parker.
Yeah.
But, so that was the kind of
thing. They were your real life superheroes in a sense.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it was, and I think they still are.
I think they were for a lot of people too. It's larger than life.
I mean, if you don't like the cartoony kind of a thing, I think everyone at one point in their life was always a wrestling fan or still is a wrestling fan.
Yeah. All right. So, who was the inspiration kind of got you to get into wrestling? Was there a specific wrestler, or was it just wrestling in general?
I kind of have a vibe. I'm always gonna say Shawn Michaels was my favorite wrestler.
I hear that from a lot of guys.
But at the same time, Chris Jericho is actually one of my biggest favorites too, and that's actually
great talker.
That's where the name Chris from Chris Parrish comes from. Is Chris Jericho. My name is completely inspired by Chris Jericho.
What's your real name? The full name?
My real name is Craig Martin.
Okay. Okay, good. Let's get that on there.
Yeah, but
it's Chris Parrish. Yeah.
That is what the CM actually stands for CM Punk. No. And then I've always loved Owen Hart. He was one of my favorites too. I'm always a big Macho Man.
Brought a whole different style to WWE. I say, because before him it was mostly Michaels helped change it, but I think Owen was a big factor in getting that high flying style into WWE.
Yeah, I think there's a lot. I think Owen Hart was just one of those different high flyers. He could do the high flying, but at the same time, he was one of the best in that. He was one of those little guys who could roll with anybody.
Make a broomstick look good.
One of my favorite WrestleMania matches of all time was Brett versus Owen at WrestleMania 10.
Yeah, that was the opening match, and it was just.
And I don't know, to me, Owen Hart is just one of it's hard because I don't want to say he's underrated just because Brett's his older brother, but I think Owen Hart is just one of those guys that should never be forgotten because he was always one of the staples to the mid card growing up.
Yeah.
And I think he may have been one of the best wrestlers never to win the heavyweight title.
I wish he was still alive today because I think if he hadn't have died, I think he would have been WWE champion within a year or two of where he was at.
Yeah. And then also, I was a big fan of Macho Man Randy Savage and Ted DiBiase, and those were pretty much my top 5 guys that I loved to watch. But really, I wanted to be
a lot of guys have worked well as a heel too. I see hearing that.
I did want to be the next Shawn Michaels, so that is my true inspiration of why I wanted to go into professional wrestling.
One of the best heels and one of the best faces this business has ever seen. It's hard to argue that. So when did you start training, and how long have you been in wrestling now?
I started training in 2004 full time. I did a couple mini camps in 2003, but it was one of those where I wasn't 18 and my parents wouldn't sign off on the waiver thing because they knew I wouldn't focus everything on school.
Yeah.
And in long terms, they were probably right. But no, so I made the pledge to my mom and said that I will, finish grade 12, but I'm going straight into professional wrestling. And then
that's what you wanted to do.
Yeah, and then in August of 2004, I started training again, and then by December, I had my first match.
Okay, so who trained you in the business? Like
Sean Dugster, who runs the Monster Pro Wrestling Training School.
All right. That's good. Okay, so you've been pretty loyal to MPW ever since too.
Yeah, that is my home.
Yeah. Okay, so what does your family think of your choice of just going to wrestling? You said your mom made you pledge to finish high school. So what do they think of what you're doing now as a wrestler?
Now I think it's changed over the years because I think a lot of times, they always think it's a phase that you're gonna go through, just like I don't know, like. Whether, guys want to listen to, like, music or guys want to, like, shave their head a lot. Or, like, they just thought it was something I was going to grow out of. But, yeah. I mean, I don't think, it's hard sometimes to explain just how much passion you have for something by saying it. You just have to go out there and prove it. And that's one of those things that
after your parents finally accepted it kind of deal.
Yeah, now they just know that it's what I love to do. And they just don't say anything about it, but they do support me with what I do, and they don't like to come to the shows because my mom does not want to see me get beat up. But
I understand that one. It's no parent wants to see their child getting hit repeatedly. I can understand that one.
No, and but I mean, I try to tell her that I beat people up a lot more than I get beat up.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's just that's the hardest fan to sell to. So, but with that being said, my family is very supportive of what I do, and that means a lot to me.
Okay, so you started out with MPW. Any really positive experiences from those first couple years in wrestling? Any big things that ever happened to you then, or?
Yeah, my second match ever, I got to work Phil LaFawn in a tag match, and that blew my mind.
Phil LaFawn, like the legend.
Yeah, wow. Like I still remember the day to when I found out that I was, going to be able to have a match with him.
Second match in Phil LaFawn. Wow, that's pretty awesome.
And my jaw probably made a dent on the floor because it was just like, what? Are you kidding me?
A guy who's been to the show, been up there working, and he's just like, I get to work this guy?
Yes, I had VHS tapes of him with, in your house working with Doug Burns against Bulldog and Owen and the Godwins and the Headbangers, and it was just, are you kidding me? Like, this guy,
you get the guy worked some of your heroes.
And I mean, I get it. Like, a lot of people are like, man, I'm working a tag match with Phil LaFawn. I'm gonna be wrestling Phil LaFawn, and they'd be like, what? Who? Because they know the sexy names like the Hulk Hogan's and the Shawn Michaels and the Bret Harts and the Rocks.
It's that person you say, I'm wrestling Phil LaFawn. They go, oh my God, you're wrestling Phil LaFawn. That's the person you know is a true fan, though.
Yeah, and I was just like, no. I think the average wrestling fan, they like the big names, but at the same time, true hardcore fans understand just how good these guys are too. And Phil LaFawn, I think, is one of the most underrated tag wrestlers.
I really think he should have had a much bigger career in the WWE than he did. They should have been a lot. They should have been the names everybody knows, because he was that good.
Yeah, but for moments I just stand out. Like, it's hard to top that, but at the same time, I had so many fun matches with so many different workers. Like, I'll always love working with Bobby Sharp in any capacity, just because.
Very good worker. I've seen him work wrestle many times.
I'll always say I think this guy is so good that he should be in the WWE system today, whether it's developmental or on the main roster. I mean, I just think he has it, and I don't know, he's one of my best friends, but at the same time, he is one of my biggest inspirations as a worker too, because I always look at him as being a guy that if I'm in the ring with, I gotta amp my game, I gotta step up because he's gonna bring that out of me.
Yeah, I got to see him work recently with former WWE guy Rene Dupree, and like he steps it. You can see him stepping up for that. So you have to step it up for him. Wow, he must be really good in there to work out like that.
Yeah, I had the amazing opportunity to watch him work countless matches with Scrap Iron, Adam Peterson. It was just fantastic. I knew that he was just working his tail off to get better, and I thought he did a fantastic job, and he definitely deserves.
He deserves to go to the show. I do.
Oh,
believe.
He definitely deserves to be there. That's
he deserves to go with it. All right. Other than MW, who have you worked for in your career? Like in your past 10, 11 years?
I've worked for like a lot of them.
Like the major ones you worked for multiple times and like maybe still work for outside MPW.
Well, I work with Monster Pro Wrestling located in Edmonton, and then Pure Power Wrestling based in Lethbridge, Alberta. And those are my two full-time companies I work with. There is Ringside Wrestling down in Moose Jaw that I've worked in the past for. But I mean, for the main point, it's Pure Power Wrestling and Monster Pro Wrestling.
Okay, so yeah, Pure Power is out of Lethbridge, you said?
Yeah, Pure Power.
I just want to give them a shout out on here. So
yeah, no, anybody who definitely lives in the Lethbridge area or even the Calgary area, or even Edmonton, they want to make up the drive. I mean, it's the third Saturday of every month they run their shows, and it's just a fantastic show, start to finish. Yeah, it's a great atmosphere and great energy, great fans too. So, I mean, if you have the chance, go out there and support it. And
like I always say on the Dim Liver podcast, support indie wrestling wherever you are.
Exactly, because I mean, it's definitely something that if you have the chance to go watch, you should, because you can go watch a bad movie for $15, or you can spend that $15 and go to a good wrestling show, and the interaction you can have between the people is just second to none. Like you can't replace it.
No, there's like I know this is being a fan. There's nothing better than being a fan, being out there at a wrestling show, and you yell something at a wrestler, and he turns at you and looks at you and yells something back. That's probably one of the coolest feelings you ever get. Like just being involved, you get to be involved in that way too as a fan. Don't attack them, but hey, give them as much crap as possible.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. It's it's entertainment at its best, and it's entertainment that you can interact with. Like, I mean, how much more fun would it be if you went to a movie but you got to be a part of the scene or whatnot? But I mean, in wrestling, you get a chance to somewhat do that to an extent. The fans are a part of the show, whether they're just not the show, but they get to be a part of the show.
I don't know how many shows I've been to where you see a fan getting so on a guy, and it may be filmed, maybe the show's being filmed or something, and you see that wrestler get out of the ring and get in that person's face. They become part of that show when they get out and start yelling at that person, and that fan loves it. I guarantee you, it's ecstatic for it.
Well, and it's still one of the images that you won't forget from WrestleMania 30 after the Undertaker loss is that one fan that's just absolutely shocked.
Yeah, the black guy is bulging eyes, like his mouth is wide open.
His eyes are about to fall out of his head because he's just in shock, and it was just one of those lasting impressions that you won't forget because there's a moment in time that you just can't believe you witnessed.
All right. So let's get back to you. You're Chris. You work as Chris Parrish. I know this. Any other gimmicks you've worked for? Any personal favorites other than Parrish?
I am told that I work a lot like a guy named Stevie Singh. No, I'm not going to do the El Generico Sami Zayn thing, but no, I used to be Stevie Singh when I first started. It was for about, I think, 2 to 3 years, and then I made the switch. Chris Parrish was always somebody that's who I am.
So you've been Parrish pretty much in most of your careers over the first couple of years, and it's been Parrish.
Yeah. So I mean, I would say probably for the last 6 years now.
All right, so that must be your favorite then.
Yeah.
All right, so any favorite, other than the Phil-a-thon, any favorite matches you've had? We talked about Phil-a-thon, but any other big ones in your career that you've had?
Oh yeah, I think just a lot of the matches I've had with Bobby Sharp too. That was the match where I became Monster Pro Wrestling provincial champion. I thought we had a great match there.
I got to see that. That was a very good match.
I had a chance to wrestle Mentolo for the CNWA provincial title, and I thought that was I really much enjoyed working with him in that.
I think he's a pretty great talent. He's currently working in this business right now. I've seen him at a good bunch of shows. He's really good in the ring.
I've even got to work Short Sleeve Samson a few times, and that was absolutely
he's
amazing.
a hoot.
And I fell short in those matches, pun intended. But at the same time, like I learned so much just working, with him and working the different styles.
He's a veteran in this business too. He's worked midget wrestling, but he's also worked with a lot of bigger guys.
And like I'm just so privileged to call him not just somebody I worked with, but like a friend as well. And he is second to none. And that was just amazing. And I could not thank him more from the times that I got to work with him. But also too, like just working with Kato, he's the only guy to beat me for the provincial title.
And you never got in that rematch one-on-one.
I never did. And
you got that. You're gonna get the eliminator last month to get it back.
Somebody else has recognized that fact.
Well, I believe that since you lost title, it's like, when did you get in his rematch? Never got it. It was kind of, I was like, what the heck?
But no, from a small standpoint too, like working with Diablo, and I thought just the interaction we had the last show, like we tore
that finish. Everybody exploded. That entire match, everybody was glued to it. But that finish, the place just exploded when you guys did the flux capacitor off the top. No, everybody exploded in that place. I was there. It was crazy.
I believe that's a moment in Monster Pro Wrestling history that will never be forgotten, and I don't think it'll ever be duplicated.
I'll never forget that. Watching that match happen from start to finish, you got so much in the Irishman. Losing his Ripper title in the provincial title match, and then all the stuff you guys did from there, it was just an amazing match.
Yeah, and after thinking about that, I was about 5 seconds too late from also maybe capturing that title.
Because you jumped on him as soon as he was pinned by Stangler, you were on him, eliminating him from the match.
Yeah, just a little bit too late on that for that Ripper title, but maybe one day I'll look towards the Ripper title. But I'm still. Isn't
that a cash in for a shot at the title too?
Yeah. I know Jackhammer went for the tag titles last year, but no, actually, I believe that was from Leo Burke. Actually,
Leo Burke.
My mistaken. But
okay, sorry. I've only been a fan of MPW for the past couple of years, so I don't know full on what everything is.
Yeah,
I know Leo Burke gets for a title.
But no, for everyone wondering, Chris Parrish is still looking at reclaiming the provincial title,
and eventually that MPW heavyweight title too, right?
Eventually.
Okay.
I will get everything.
Okay, so if you had to pick one wrestler not in MPW right now, it's in the Edmonton area, who would you want to work with? One or even a couple guys, if you got a couple guys you would want to work with.
Well, it's always going to be hard because now that he is no longer with MPW, Bobby Sharp is always going to be on that list.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, when it comes to other talents,
the ones in other pros.
I
haven't got a chance. Maybe
I would love just to go out there and work with Slammer a couple times. I like to work with Gabriel Lestat because I've known him for a long time, but I've never had a chance to work with him.
Great talent. I've got to see him from when he was with Eclipse Totally.
Pretty much anybody who would be willing to, work, that I haven't worked with. I think that's one of the greatest things, too.
You want to get everybody under your belt, pretty much try it at least once.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of how I become better is by, working with
different people every time.
And just stepping up. But, I mean, I do believe I can go toe-to-toe with anybody in Edmonton. So.
All right, if you could wrestle... Okay, let's talk about legends here. Living, dead, whatever. Give me your top 3 legends you'd want to work with.
That's going to be pretty easy. It's Shawn Michaels, Chris Jericho, and Teddy DiBiase.
All right.
Owen Hart is very close, but I think I have a lot of Teddy DiBiase in me. And let's face it, Teddy DiBiase always brings money to the ring, and I'd like to get some.
you could get in there, you just grab his money and run.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many of those, especially.
Or after you beat him, grab his money and run.
Especially with the deceased books, I would still love to work with Macho Man. Kurt Hennig is phenomenal.
One of the bestest businesses I've ever seen. Kurt Hennig.
I think it would be fun to wrestle with too, and just who in their right mind, if they're a true fan of this sport. Who wouldn't want to be in the ring with Hulk Hogan?
Okay, it doesn't matter if the match is crap or not. The dude, if you watch any Hulk Hogan match, it's not a technical masterpiece, especially with Andre Giant, definitely weren't. But those crowds I've seen those crowds be so much louder than some of the best technical wrestling matches in the world. It's just, you got to know how to play to that crowd. And he knew how to play to that crowd like nobody's business.
Oh, it would be just unbelievable energy flowing down there to be standing in front of Hulk Hogan in that Pontiac Silverdome when there's 90,000+ people. How do you not get goosebumps.
Okay, on that, do you think he still has another match left in him? Do you think he'll ever? You think WWE will let him do another match, or do you think he's even physically capable of it anymore?
That's tough because I don't know. I don't know if WWE would ever let him. I think if they could, they would, but I don't know if we'll ever see that. I think we have a better shot of seeing Shawn Michaels come out of retirement.
Yeah, I think so too. I just think with Jerry Lawler having his heart attack, they're not letting as many of the old guys get in the ring anymore because they're not wanting to risk.
I think you have a better chance of seeing CM Punk come back than Hulk Hogan wrestle.
And that doesn't even look like it's ever going to happen. So we're at this moment with the lawsuit and everything. So, all right. I know every wrestler's dream. It's WWE. I know a lot of guys that's their dream. But other than the WWE, is there anywhere you'd want to go? New Japan, ROH, any of those other promotions would.
Oh, for sure. I think all of those. I think even TNA, they're all grounds for you to get better.
And they've all got their great guys.
But ultimately, who doesn't want to, be a part of WrestleMania? And I think that's always the be all and end all. I think when you play football, you want to go to the Super Bowl. When you play hockey, you want to be in the Stanley Cup. I mean, you don't want to be a lot of those people. Yeah, you don't want. You'd rather go to the NFL than the CFL is great, but it's not the NFL. Yeah, and then when if you're a golfer, you want to win the Masters, or if you want to be in amateur wrestling, you want to win that Olympic gold medal. You always want to go to the top.
Yeah,
and I think the top in professional wrestling is WrestleMania. Regardless of what people feel about the WWE product nowadays, WrestleMania is still the number one goal. I think for everyone in professional wrestling, I think they'd be lying if they said they weren't.
It was cool for me. I got to watch Wrestle Kingdom live. It was on pay-per-view. This is finally the first time in Canada, and I got to watch a guy who I've gotten to watch personally here in Davey Boy Smith work at the biggest show in Japan. David Boy Smith Jr., and it was amazing just to see a guy that I've gotten to see here who's gotten to go to that. I thought that was pretty awesome. I think for a lot of guys, that'd be a pretty big stage for him too.
Yeah, I always appreciated seeing him just get an opportunity to always showcase, because I think he's an amazing talent. I mean, I've shared locker rooms in the past with the NWA with Harry Smith. And the guy is second to none, one of the nicest, most genuine people I've ever met in my life, and he is completely talented in what he does. So it's always sad to say this guy should be in a main event in WWE, but I just don't think he wants to be in WWE.
I think he's enjoying getting pushed other places and
getting
chances to work many different people too.
And that's the thing. I mean, there's that different style that you get in Japan that you don't get in WWE, and I think that's something that, as an artist in this business, that's where he'd rather be. I mean, let's face it, not everyone does this for the money, and not everyone does this for the fame. A lot of people do this just to be the best they can possibly be, and Harry Smith is definitely one of those guys who wants to be the best at what he does. And I know every time I see him do good, every time I see him get praised on a match, I'm happy because he definitely deserves it.
And he's a guy who hadn't actually got MMA training to further his wrestling ability. I think it's a big plus for his wrestling ability is learning MMA and getting that background there.
Yeah, and you see that a lot with the Daniel Bryans and even the CM Punk. I think the MMA and professional wrestling do have a place of a mixture, but I just don't. I've never been the big believer that you got to sell MMA through wrestling and vice versa. I've always thought that's always a recipe for disaster. But at the same time, that's exactly where a yes lock. I mean that can be a jiu-jitsu hold. A Kimura can always be very dangerous in professional wrestling.
It's just a basic armor that any wrestler does. We've seen Ronda win. Seen Ronda Rousey win with arm bars.
Yeah,
same thing a wrestler would use too.
I mean, and I think a lot of the top guys nowadays understand just how important both are, and you can really get a more interesting matchup if you know each. And let's face it, the more you know, the better you can be.
Yeah. All right. So, are you still a wrestling fan when it comes to WWE, ROH? What are you watching today? Maybe don't watch anymore?
Oh yeah, everything that's on TV is on my DVR. So I mean, I'll be in the network. I mentioned that earlier. I still keep tabs on TNA, Ring of Honor, all talk to them about the Wrestle Kingdom, and I'm very excited to see what Jeff Jarrett does with GFW, Global Force Wrestling. So, no, like I keep my tabs on everything, and no, and that's the thing. Like I love wrestling. Like it doesn't matter what company it is. I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna listen about it, and I want to see it because everywhere has good stuff.
Oh yeah,
there's good stuff everywhere.
There's always a gem in everything.
And no, I'm just a fan. So like when it comes down to wrestling, if it's good, I'll watch it.
All right. Okay, so you mentioned on Jeff Jarrett's Global Force Wrestling. Do you think he can be, if he can walk himself into a TV deal and everything and get himself a promotion running, do you think he could be a good option for guys that maybe can't make it to WWE?
Yeah, I definitely think it's an alternative. I think one of the misconceptions going out there is just because he was so successful with like bringing TNA up from being the weekly pay-per-view to an alternative. I think everyone just is so tired of being WWE only in this world, and I think a lot of people just kind of if they get bored of the product, they go and they want to go somewhere else, and then they're like, oh, this is I don't like WWE, I like TNA, or I like Ring of Honor, or I like New Japan, or I like something else, and let's face it. There is not going to be a second WWE. WWE is the most successful wrestling promotion of all time.
It's a monster. I don't think anybody's going to be able to get to that level again. But
I mean, I think if Global Force is going to make a mark, we need quality product to get behind. Because if it's not good, you're not going to go see it. And I think if that's going to succeed, you won't go longer wrestling. But look at his track record. He's not going to have He's not going to have bad talent there.
No. Maybe some bad writing I've seen in the past, but he's always found great talent for TNA. He always had great talent there.
Let's face it, like nobody thought his wife was going to be anything in professional wrestling, but she was pretty entertaining.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, Jeff Jarrett knows this business, and I do think when you know this business, you are definitely a step above the rest of, there's a lot of promoters out there who don't know this business and have promotions, and Jeff Jarrett is not one of those. He has a great mind for this business, and he's very successful in this business, so I do believe that he will do well.
Okay, so do you think Global Force Wrestling could help establish a foothold for New Japan? I know they did the pay-per-view in January. You think them helping, especially with the pay-per-views, and maybe even using their guys when they finally get a promotion, do you think it could help get New Japan as a foothold here in North America?
Yeah, I think that's the new age of what we see now is those partnerships, because it's a way to have one area and have one dimension. Like if Global Force Wrestling is going to be a North America company, and then you have New Japan, and then you have the merge. All of a sudden now you're bringing the two together, and Japanese fans can watch the North American talent and vice versa. I think just though with the internet being what it is, and I think with the way the world works now, I don't think a lot of people don't know what else is out there. I think it's just a matter of if you're lazy and you don't want to take the time to go check it out, you won't know. But I think you have that opportunity nowadays. But
I know I was up at 2 a.m. watching that, or 12 a.m. something, whatever which time it was. I was up watching that pay-per-view from start to finish when the New Japan was broadcast live. I watched it all night. I was up there all night watching it, and I was not disappointed at all by that product. It was great.
No, and that's another thing too that I think sends back to it's going to be successful because it's a good product. But to go back to if it's going to help, I think a lot of people now are going to go and work with each other because they understand the bigger picture nowadays. It's not about being an empire like WWE is. It's about just getting as big and most successful as you can and helping each other as a way.
I can eventually see if Global Force Wrestling is giving. I could see them trying to make a partnership with ROH because ROH got that partnership with New Japan. I think it'd be a good three-way partnership there to keep their guys working in different areas too.
Well,
I think.
And you can even go back and look at when WCW was against WWF at the time, and WWF and ECW worked together, and you always saw those little invasions when there were always something that kept you on track. Like I'll always remember the Eliminators being on Raw, and Rob Van Dam invading Raw the one time, and this is before the invasion angle with WCW.
Plus, on the other side of the book, there was WCW, the partnerships with New Japan. You got to see some of the greatest New Japan wrestlers there, and a lot of the Mexican, they brought in a lot of guys from Mexico. They introduced a whole new style into North American wrestling.
Yeah, and that brought out the cruiserweight division, which was one of the most successful divisions I think in pro wrestling. And it was just a staple. I don't think you'd have an X division in TNA if you never had a cruiserweight division.
There's no way there'd be an X division without a cruiserweight division, because those guys were like. If you do look at some of the guys that started that X Division, were former WCW cruiserweights.
Yeah, and if you look at the guys who are in the cruiserweight division, I mean, you're talking about guys like Chris Jericho, guys like Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, Chris Benoit, and just fantastic talents that went on to have Hall of Fame careers. I mean, Chris Jericho, when he's done, he's in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, guaranteed.
Eddie Guerrero, Hall of Fame.
He's already
Rey Mysterio, one of the greatest little guys in this business of all time.
Like I've heard lately, he's on outs with WWE, but I think down the road, when he's done wrestling, they will induct him, because he made them a lot of money on merch. Yeah. Guarantee that alone, and he had some of the best matches in their promotion.
And it's just in a different style too. Like not everyone's going to be able to relate to the heavyweights all the time. I mean, try to find the average girl. She's not going to understand what it's like to be an Ultimate Warrior or a Macho Man, but, maybe Alundra Blaze comes through and she can relate a little bit more to her.
I'll say this, when I'm watching wrestling, I'll say this, the ones I'm drawn to are the Zigglers, the Bryans, the Punks, those smaller guys that can move a lot faster in that ring, give you a more high impact, like, quick style, rather than that little bit the slower big man style.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a recipe that you even see in MMA, and that's why you have different weight categories. But at the same time, like, it just allows you to have a more diverse show and a diverse product when you have, different styles, different kind of workers. And then when you have the opportunity, you mix them together, and that's what creates a very interesting dynamic. And that's a match that you just want to watch.
Yeah, I definitely agree. All right, get back to you. Other than wrestling, what's the biggest passions or hobbies you have in your life other than the wrestling?
Other than wrestling, that pretty much consumes who I am. But no, I mean, like, me personally, like, I'm a big sports fan. Like, I'm a huge NFL guy. I mean, the Saints are my team. I've been a Saints fan for going on to 9 years now. So,
all right.
I'm very passionate about the Saints. I'm a hockey fan too. Like, I used to play hockey growing up, and I still occasionally do. But I don't know. That's I'm just a giant sports fan. I'm a jock.
Yeah.
I play lacrosse. That's always a great game. That's from the entertainment wise, that's what I do. I mean, I'm also soon to be family man, but I'm just gonna leave that at its bay.
That's all good there for that.
We'll talk wrestling here.
All right. So moving on to a topic that's come up a lot recently in MMA, and we haven't seen it for a couple years in wrestling. I haven't really heard about the big ones happening. Is performance enhancing drugs and drugs in general in the sport. What's your opinion on it? And especially in wrestling, like, I know for a lot of guys back in the day, it helped them get that big man look, and I know Vince is still into that look.
Yeah, I think drugs in wrestling and drugs in MMA are completely kind of a different story. However, I mean, I'm not for it at all. Like, I don't understand. Well, I don't actually know. That's a bad way of wording it. I understand why people take it. I understand, like, why it's out there. I just don't agree with that reasoning. So I'll never take performance enhancing. I mean, I'll have energy.
I'll say this. I see you learning. You don't need it. You're good and fair. No, so
I'd rather be the best and look the best. And I think there's a difference between the two. And by no means am I saying I'm the best. I just that's kind of like how I approach things. Like, I rather,
You've seen guys, small guys, make that big step anyway.
Well, that's the thing. Like, it's, I can be as big as Batista, or do I want to be as talented as Shawn Michaels? And I think that's kind of like the difference between that. Not to mention, I'm 5'7", I'm 170 pounds. Like, how big do I really need to be?
It would look. I think it would equate to Dynamite, a small guy who put way too much on his frame, and that was.
Well, and I think this
big problem for him.
This is what causes a lot of people to, I believe, die earlier. That and just the mixture of pills and alcohol and the abuse that it takes with everything. I mean, let's face it. I mean, that should probably have killed Eddie long before the time he ultimately did pass.
We know he quit doing that stuff around 2001, 2002 when he came back to WWE. He got clean, but I think it's just because it took such a toll on his body. his heart was that weak already.
Yeah.
And him wrestling.
And that's just one of the most important notes. I mean, it affects your health on long term. That's something that you don't want to mess with. That's not a fight that you want to get involved with. I mean, but also from a big picture too. If you have a talent and you're good at something, and then it's been said that you're only as good because you took steroids, or you're only as strong because you took steroids. I mean, you're devaluing what you do for a living too. Like, I just think this is a black eye on what you do as a profession.
Because it gets put an asterisk next to your name. You never did it yourself. You did it with something else, with assistance.
And one of the best examples is you look at Barry Bonds. Like, that guy was an amazing hitter, and then he takes steroids, and then he becomes a home run king. But then now it's, is Barry Bonds a good home run hitter? Well, I mean, he's good, but I mean, if it wasn't for steroids, he wouldn't be the best.
Yeah.
And there's always that exception, and nobody wants to have that at the end of their life. Like, they don't want that legacy to be a guy who is only as good because he cheated in a way. And I don't want to necessarily say it's cheating, but it is, because if you're good at something,
be good at it. If you're good at it naturally, you're good at it. But if you have to use something to be good at it, it might not have been.
I mean, talent is always going to pull through.
Oh yeah,
and that's I think at the end of the day, the best message to send. And
I think even that you see with Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, in a world where Vince loved his big guys, two small guys became their number one guys for a while there.
I think both guys did their fair share of stuff too.
I don't doubt. But you never they weren't the biggest guy. They weren't the I'm not saying they didn't do their stuff, but I don't think the steroids on it as much, because they weren't the big guys.
No, I mean, it's different from when you look at hypothetically at Chris Masters when he first became the masterpiece to the last time you saw him. I mean, you can definitely see that.
I saw him at an indie show, and he looked a lot different than what he did when he was competing WWE.
But at the same time, I thought when I last saw him in WWE, he was better.
Oh yeah, but he had dropped a lot of weight off his frame,
and I think that has a lot to do with just the company trying to clean up their act, so to speak, and try to just have more natural talent in there than enhanced talent. And I think that's a very key component to the business moving forward, especially with mixed martial arts, with the stagnant that it's UFC is as real as it can get, and then all of a sudden you see Anderson Silva testing positive. It just doesn't create a great market.
I think it hurts his legacy too.
Yeah, and it's a black eye on the sport itself, and I think it's just one of those things that on top of it, affecting your overall health and putting a black eye on the sport. Those are two big negatives that are really hard to come by. I mean, it's just like the whole Chris Benoit thing. The guy was an amazing wrestler.
But what he did hurt the sport.
But at the same time, you're always gonna remember him as the guy who committed those acts.
He had such a legendary career, but he'll always be that guy that killed his family.
When you hear Chris Benoit, you don't remember the ladder match he had with Chris Jericho or that amazing Royal Rumble match with Kurt Angle. You think of what he did the last couple of days, and that's something that puts a complete black eye on your legacy. But at the same time, as a sport, that's just something that doesn't help its overall image too. So from a business standpoint and from a personal standpoint, it's just not good in the long run.
All right, so let's go. We'll get back. I heard from a friend of mine you were named in the PWI 500.
Yeah, I was named 495 this year, or for 2014.
The last issue that came out, anyways.
And 490 the year before. So I mean, that was pretty cool because I was outside of the WWF magazine, the only other wrestling magazine I read as a kid, and I always looked at the 500 because
you thought the best guys in business then.
That, and I always knew there was, when you started watching WWF, and then all of a sudden you hear about WCW and then ECW, you realize that there's more people involved. And then when I read the 500, I saw so many names that weren't in either one of those companies, and then that allowed me to go and search or go and do research and find out what these guys did and how good they were. And that was the first time I always remembered that's how I got into watching Japanese wrestling, was because of the 500, and I saw a lot of names that I didn't recognize, so I went
searching.
Exactly, and that just opened up a completely different horizon. And what I think is cool is that I, thinking maybe I'm not very egotistical in this way, but at the same time, like maybe that's happening somewhere else, or somebody sees my name and they're searching what I do, and because of that, they're looking at where I work and the companies that I work, and they're checking it out. And I always think that if that's happening, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. Where can we see you where and when can we see you in the ring next?
Next will be March 5th at the Kingsway Legion for Monster Pro Wrestling. I believe I am.
Is it March 6th?
Yeah, sorry, did I say March 5th?
Yeah, March 6th.
Sorry. No, it is a Friday.
March 6th.
Friday of the month, not the Saturday like we always are. It is a Friday. And, Kingsway Legion, new venue for this one show. We'll be back at the Alberta Ave in April, and May as well. But, so that's where you can see me next. And then I'll be in Lethbridge for Pure Power Wrestling March 21st.
All right. What can we look forward to on the next Monster Pro Wrestling card?
I believe I am going toe-to-toe with the newcomer JJ Spade, the wild card they call him, I guess.
Got to see his first match last month.
Yeah,
in the Eliminator.
I get to extract some revenge for that blindside tag and for him trying to steal my thunder.
He stole your elimination there, Rick Jules.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to forget that, and I'm going to teach this okay lesson come March 6th. So JJ Spade, I hope you bring the wild card, because I'm gonna royally flush you down the toilet, my friend. That is when you can see me next in the Edmonton area, and if you're in the Lethbridge, Calgary area, or even if you want to make that trip down, you can watch me March 21st in Lethbridge for Pure Power Wrestling.
All right, thank you so much, Chris, for coming on the podcast. Very much enjoyed sitting down with you and learning about your life. And
for sure, I appreciate you having me.
All right, thank you very much. This has been Inside the Wrestlers' Lives with Andre C. with my guest, Chris Parrish.